We learned how to monitor the Fabric data warehouse in our previous class. Now, once we know how to monitor the data, do we need to really secure the data? Do we need to secure the Fabric data warehouse? Do we need to, or we need not?
We need to secure it, sir.
We need to, right? That is one of the important aspects. Okay. So, apart from monitoring, we also need to know how do we secure the different aspects of the data warehouse. Now, before we really get into that, what is security from the system perspective? Security from the software product perspective. Okay. What is security, Anna?
So protecting our data from unauthorized access.
Very good. So security ensures that, pay attention to this, only the right people can have access to the right data in a safe and compliant way. Simple, straightforward way of understanding the security. It ensures that only the right people can access the right data in a safe and compliant way. Okay. How do we secure the Fabric data warehouse? Any thoughts from anyone? How do we secure it?
Access management.
Access management, that is one of the very, very important aspect. Any other aspects? So we can look at the security aspects of the data warehouse, three dimensions. One is looking at the workspace roles. Second one is item permissions. The third one is data protection features. So when we look at the security aspects of a Fabric warehouse, we should look at these three dimensions: workspace, item, and data protection. Okay, let us look at them one by one. At a high level, we have first and foremost thing is the tenant. Do you guys remember that? Tenant.
Yes.
Okay. Only thing is, after knowing the capacity, you know the capacity now. Okay. Under that, we have workspace, under that we have item. Items are data warehouse, reports, dashboards, and all. Okay. So anyway, we'll look at this in bit more detail as a part of the administration, but just bringing this back so that have a context when I discuss some of the aspects in the subsequent slides. Okay. So kind of, can you guys take a picture of this? Done?
Yes.
Okay. Wonderful. Now we'll look at those three dimensions one by one. We already know what is workspace. Okay. Now, as Balini said, in order to access the workspace, we may have to define the roles, or we may have to ensure which are the users having access to the workspace. I'll ask you a question, Anna. Do we have only one workspace or multiple workspaces in
So
an organization?
there'll be multiple, sir.
Multiple workspaces. Excellent. Okay. So we may have multiple workspaces, and each workspace would be accessed by a set of users that need to be defined. Okay. So we can have different roles to access or to have a certain control on the workspace. Admin. Okay. Admin has a full control over all the aspects, and we have member. Member can manage and modify the assets, and we have contributor can create and edit the items. Okay, and we have viewer. Okay, what is the viewer, Shabna? What he can do?
Viewers which they can view the reports, dashboard.
Correct. They cannot do anything. They can only read the content in the workspace. Nothing else. Okay, you guys got it? So that is the workspace for you. Now we'll move on to the item. Okay, one very, very important thing is, see, we have a item within the workspace or workspace within the item?
Item within the workspace.
Item within the workspace. Okay. So now we have already defined the roles and access at the workspace. And even though we define the roles at the workspace, we can also define the permissions and roles at the item level as well. So item permissions control the access to different objects like data sets, reports, pipelines within the workspace. And very, very important aspect is item permissions override the workspace role. You're getting right? So even though you would have given some permission at the workspace level, then when you come to the item, if we give a certain role, that will be the final. Okay. Let us say at a workspace level, you would have given a contributor. Okay. And at a data warehouse level, if you just give a viewer, then this will override this. Okay. Simple, right? Why item permissions we need to use? What is the reason? We already have a permissions at the workspace level, right? Why do we need to use the item permissions? What is so important about it, Parveen?
That is what, so the authenticated person have the access
Okay, that is very good. Any other thoughts from anyone?
to secure the data.
Okay, wonderful. See, when we are talking about an organization, everybody need not know everything, right? CEO should know something, project coordinator should know something, CTO should know something, CFO should know something. Within the project, let us say 50 people are there in the project, all the people need not have all the access, right? So, in a way, it facilitates the sharing across the teams. Okay. And who can query, edit, and manage our warehouse? Okay. We can control that, which is very, very important. Okay. So, and also improve the security downstream of the usage. When we send the data to other downstreams, we can improve the security there. And also, we have the permissions. When I say permissions, if you give a proper permissions, any unauthorized access will be prevented. Okay. So, and it maintains the data integrity. That means that like whatever the data which is there, which is apt, correct, and trustable. Okay. And then it will ensure the compliance with the security policies. For all these things, item permissions are important. So at an item level, we can give the item level permissions by using a Fabric portal or by using a TSQL. Okay, we can do both ways. So how do we do that? When I say permissions, we have three types of permissions. Read data, read all. Read allows the connection using the SQL string, allows the reading from the tables and read all grants the access to the read data files in the one line. We'll see all these examples as a part of the hands-on. Okay, just now see what are the different type of permissions. Okay, and basically you have to appreciate when we go to the security, it is not only one kind of a topic or one kind of a permission. It involves multiple aspects. That is what you have to remember. Then we have granular, as I said, we can give the permissions by using the T-SQL also, right? So by using a T-SQL, we can control the access to the table, view, function, and stored procedures. Okay. And also one very important thing when we are providing the permissions, we have to follow something called principle of least privilege. We have to follow, cover this more as a part of the next subsequent slides. So when we are talking about the permissions in the SQL, we have DML permissions, that is data manipulation language permissions. Within that, we can allow the permission to only select the data. We can allow the permission to insert the data. We can allow the permission to update the data. We can allow the permission to delete the data. And also, we can look at the permission for the functions and SPs, that is stored procedures. Okay, like you have a alter and control. Alter is like modifying the object. Control is full access to an object. So we are discussing about the security aspects. Within that, we have workspace, item, and data protection. Workspace we completed. We are discussing about the item. Within that item, we can provide the item level permissions by using a Fabric portal or by using a T-SQL. And we, by using a T-SQL, what and all permissions we can provide. That is what we are discussing. Okay. So little bit about grant and deny. Okay. Any idea, Shabna? What is this grant? What is the deny permission? Any idea?
Grant means
Grant means?
granting the permission to access the table.
Okay, correct. So grant is something like this. Okay, nothing but we are saying a grant. So we are granting the permission to select this. Okay. Now we are denying to do this. Okay. Granting is allowing. Denying is not allowing. Okay. So one thing what you have to understand is, let us say our Muttuminal will use both grant and deny on the same object. Then deny takes the precedence to be a safer. That is one more important thing to remember. See, all these things are interesting, isn't it? Okay. So you guys would have not really thought about so many aspects in the security itself, isn't it? Right, Parveen?
Yes, sir.
Right? We have to implement, while providing the permissions, while providing the privileges, we have to follow the principle of least privilege. What do you think is principle of least privilege, Anna?
So giving access to only few people.
Few people, okay. So instead of providing all the access to all the users, admins are the people who are providing the access. They should take care of providing the permissions to the users what they need. The user should only have the permissions they need. Let us say now Mahanta need to have a read permission. If I am given read, contribute, and all those, it doesn't make sense. So provide only the permissions to the users what they need to have. Okay, you guys are getting it, right? So that is called as a principle of least privilege. Whatever they need to have, only provide those access. So you guys got it, right? It's a simple concept with a very nice jargon, right? Principle of least privilege. Okay, but the concept is very, very simple. Okay, when we are talking about the permissions, right? We can provide the permission well in advance. Okay, and also there is some concept of dynamic SQL for permission control. What is the dynamic SQL for permission control, Parveen?
Using some SQL commands, we can give the permissions.
That's correct. Okay. So, like you want to provide or remove the permissions as a part of the stored procedures. You provide this grant, invoke, deny, all these permissions as a part of the stored procedures. They're not explicit this one. Okay. You have a certain code to do something else. Inside that, you provide the permissions, access based on some inputs, based on some path, based on some work. That is the dynamic SQL for permission. So that anyway we'll see. Okay. Now we understood two aspects of three dimensions. One is workspace, second one is item. Within that item, we discuss various aspects. Item permissions can be done by from the fabric. Item permissions can be given by the UI in the fabric, or you can also do it through granular permissions through T-SQL. Now the last one there is data protection security in fabric. Any thoughts, Anna? What and all may be there as a part of the data protection security in the fabric? What and all may be there? Malini, what can be there as a part of this?
Malware or some attack
Malware.
or data. Yeah.
Okay. So let us understand this. It has three dimensions. The data protection security also has a three dimensions inter. Okay. So we have three dimensions within the data protection. One is column level security. Second one is row level security. And the third one is dynamic data masking. So when I say column level security, we are looking at the restricting or giving the visibility at the table columns. So when you say row level, we are looking at providing the where classes and limiting the access to the rows. And when you say dynamic data masking, we're looking at obscuring or masking, okay, or hiding, yes, sensitive data of any level. It can be row or it can be column level, whichever, basically at the cellular level. Okay. So all these things are there as a part of the data protection. Okay. Now let us look at them one by one. So when you say row level security, Shabda?
Securing the data data arranged in a row way.
So as we already understood in the earlier slide, a row level security restricts the row access based on user roles or execution context. Depends on that. Okay. Basically, it allows or restricts the row access based on the user roles or execution context. Very simple and famous example here is platform. E-commerce platform has so many users. Okay. So many sellers. In that, sellers would see only their own orders. Okay. And when you have a multi-tenant, tenants will access only their own data. Okay. That is a row level security. Okay. Basically, when we talk about the row level security, it has two aspects. One is security predicate, which determines the row access, and also something called transparent enforcement. Okay. So when we talk about it is a condition. There should return a true or a false. Okay. So that is how you will be able to limit the row level access, right? Isn't it? See, we are talking about the row level access here. In order to provide the row level access or not to provide, you are using a condition. Based on some condition, you are making some of the rows visible. Based on some condition, you are making some of the rows invisible. Okay, you guys got it, right? So, and one more very thing is, let us say you have 100 users. So users don't know they're restricted. I mean, as a person who is taking care of the administration of the Fabric or data warehouse, you would be controlling the user permissions based on what they need to know. Basically, need to know basis. But he or she doesn't know whether what kind of a permission they have until they really dig. And when we assign the particular permission user for a particular level of a permission, it is enforced automatically as a part of the SQL Server in the beginning itself. So there are two main steps. The similar, okay. First, define the predicate. Predicate, what it does is it filters the rows based on the condition defined, okay, and you enforce the security. So in a way, invokes the table which has a function to protect the rows in a. As a developer, you may not do this on a daily basis, but based on what you are having a certain access, you should know that. Attended this class, you wouldn't really pay attention to this. Okay. As a developer, if something is not working, one aspect is also a security, permissions, roles. You have to look at that as well. So, like basically within the filter, you have different predicates, means conditions. So if you have if you are applying the predicate and a select, you can't view the filtered rows. If you are applying a condition on the update, you can't modify the filter rows. If you are applying the condition on a delete, you can't delete the filter. If you are applying a predicate on the insert, though you are trying to insert, nothing is getting affected there. Okay, these are the different predicates access types. Okay, so some of the use cases are, let us say, when you want to isolate the departmental access at the row level, then you can use the RLS. Whenever you need to restrict the customer's data to only data related to their company, then you can use the RLS. And also based on the complaints, you guys have a lot of complaints in the US. It's Sarbanes-Oxley, HIPAA, so many complaints are there. Okay, if you have to restrict the user access for a purpose of the complaints, then also you can use the RLS. That is row level security, RLS. RLS means row level. So some of the best practices, Parveen, what are the best practices according to you? The first point.
Separate schema for predicate functions. It is a good practice to create separate schema for specific data.
No. The thing is, now usually we create the schema for the tables, right?
Yeah.
But what they're suggesting is, whenever you are wanting to play or implement the row level security, you just create a separate schema for predicate is conditions and functions, and security policy. So apart from creating the schema for the tables, you create a schema for predicate functions and security policies. That is what it means. Separate schema. Okay. Ideally, it is not created, but while you are implementing the RLS, please do that. Okay.
Mhm.
And also within the predicate functions, do not have the type conversions like int to double, into character, and all those things. Do not do that. Okay. And also
Yes.
avoid the joins, excessive joins. Because the moment you do that, the row level C may not be the same when you do the joins. Are you getting it? May not be the same. Okay, that is the reason you have to avoid all those things. Okay. Anyway, it will be more of a admin. I don't know whether you would be doing it on the first time. Maybe over a period of time you will be doing it. Then comes the column level security in the Microsoft Fabric. So basically, what are we discussing, Anna?
So data protection features.
Data protection features as a part of what?
Security.
Security. Okay, absolutely. Okay, so we are talking about the security at the security of Fabric data. Within that, we have three important dimensions: workspace, item, and data security, right? Within the data, we are looking at row level, column level, and masking. Okay. We just discussed about row level. And what is column level, Shabna? What is column level?
Securing the data based on column.
Absolutely, that's it. Okay, let us see how do we do it. Okay, some more aspects will. So as our Shabna already said, in the RLS, we restrict the access at the row level. Here, as the name suggests, we restrict the access at the column level. Okay, why is it so important, Malini?
For data security.
For data security. Okay, yeah, that is one of the very underlying. Okay, so it protects the sensitive data. Okay, and ensures the compliance with the regulations. Again, GDPR, and HIPAA. Okay, and provides the granular access. More or less similar points. Yeah, what is that?
What is GDPR and HIPAA? That is new, sir. Look like.
Basically, they're the compliance regulations. So,
okay.
GDPR, as I understand, it says whatever data created in Europe should remain in Europe.
Okay.
HIPAA,
so geography.
Okay, yeah. HIPAA is more within the US. Okay, I think it is mostly to do with the health insurance. Health. Okay, as I understand, they are more of a compliance. Okay, basically based on the compliance regulations of a countries, you also have to maintain the security level. Okay, you have to provide the granular access level control. Also, it will help. So, like in the healthcare industry, let us say you have patient ID, name, address, date of birth, medical history. So, all the people need not know all the sensitive information. Okay. So, depending upon who is accessing the data, only those particular columns are given access to. So, for example, doctors and nurses can view the medical history. Okay, receptionists and patients are not allowed to access the medical history. Very simple example. Right, Sabna, you are able to get it. That is one of the very wonderful use case in the healthcare for a column level. Then the masking. So, what is dynamic data masking? Anyone? Dynamic data masking.
Encrypting the data.
Yes, correct. So, it is a feature that limits the data exposure to the unauthorized users. Okay, and when I say real-time masking, based on as and when the data is getting captured or getting in the flow of a system, we are masking the important aspects of the data. Okay, so one what is happening when you say masking? What will happen to the original data? Nothing happens. Actual data, original data remains as is. Okay, and in the context of the Fabric Warehouse, it is easy to implement. There is no complex coding. Okay, so we can introduce the dynamic masking at the query level. Okay, then like basically this is one of the examples. Okay, let us say you have a email johndoe@contoso.com. Okay, so we'll mask. Basically, there will be masking rules. Okay, there will be masking rules depending upon the type of data, phone number. Okay, so some company may choose to mask these, some company may choose to mask this. Okay, depending upon that. Okay, so whenever depending upon the hierarchy within the organization, some people will see the data at this level. Very few people, and most of the people see the data at this level. Okay, so you guys are getting it, right, Parveen?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
right? There are so many aspects as a part of the security. So there are different types of masking. Okay, there is something called default. Okay, since there is something called default, and because email is a lot common thing, email is also listed as a one masking rule, email masking rule, and also custom text masking rule, and also random text mask. So default is you are masking full data. That is default. Hide everything. So whenever you want to hide everything, go for the full mask. So in the email within email there are different categories. Okay, so here we are seeing hide full email address. Okay, until.com, hide everything. And custom text, depending upon what is your requirement, go for a partial masking for the readable. Okay, and random, whether you want to mask the numerical data, you want to mask the binary data, something like those things will be done as a part of the random. Okay, we're discussing about when we have a data, depending upon the organization, depending upon the use case, we may have to apply the masking rules. Okay, please remember that when you are working in a company, if you are not able to see the data, maybe you have to look at what level your permission is. If your work needs the exposure to all of this, you have to request for a permission. Don't think that something has happened. At a high level, we discussed about the security in Fabric Data Warehouse at a workspace level, at an item level, and what is the third one?
Data protection.
Data protection. Data protection in turn has three things: row level, column level, and also dynamic. That's all for now. Like and subscribe and turn on notifications for future videos. Thank you.